afternoon, good evening. Welcome to another episode of Indie Reads TV, presented to you by Pages Promotions. I am Diana Catherine Plopa. I am here today speaking with yet another indie author, which is very exciting for me because she's a good friend and a great writer. I'm very, very excited. So this is, if I can find the right button, this is Mackenzie Flohr, and she is a local indie author who writes some really spectacular literature. And if you haven't read her yet, you really should. Welcome, Mackenzie, to the show.
Thank you.
I'm so happy to have you here. It's been a while since I've seen you last, and I know a lot of exciting things have been happening in your world, so we're going to get to that really soon. But first of all, I'm really interested in how you first got started writing. How old were you, and what was that thing that said, someday I'm going to write a best-selling novel? What was that thing that drove you to do this?
Well, my mom was very much into like the creative world, building and all that type of things. She was an English teacher, so when she had me, she decided to retire, and there still was my dad, his sister was still an English teacher. So they really kind of helped with doing that. I went to the Beck Center for the Cultural Art in Lakewood, Ohio, so I got the theater background. I did a lot of drawing, and I would make like these little books, literally take like Christmas paper and just fold it over, write my own thing, draw it. And that was kind of like my thing to do. I didn't get serious though about it until I went to Indiana. And this was back in like 2000, I want to say, maybe 2002. There was in Indiana, there was a Lord of the Rings museum that was going on. And I'm one of those people that I look at like everything on the road when I'm driving. So I'm looking at the sign and it was like, boom! I'm like, wow! And then got the story of the Rite of Wands.
Wow!
I couldn't tell you what the sign said. People ask me that. I'm like, I don't know what it said, but apparently it was cool.
And so how long ago was that for you?
That was like 2002. Yeah, so it was about 13 years before the Rite of Wands actually became the Rite of Wands.
Okay, so when you were doing the Rite of Wands, working on that, birthing this book, as we in the industry often like to say, were you working on other projects at the time? Were you working in the industry? Was this just a side thing that was kind of seeping out of your being? How did that come about?
Yeah, it was probably more of a side project than being something serious. I never really thought of myself as being like, say, a published author. That's something I would like to have seen. I did a lot of fan fiction writing, specifically like Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
I did a lot of that, and I also at that time was working for Melody Thomas Scott, which if people are not familiar with her, she is Nikki Newman on The Young and Restless, and still is on The Young and Restless. So I was doing her website, and I found out through her that she liked to write too. And though I don't know if she ever actually went ahead and finished her project that she wanted to do, but that kind of intrigued me. So I started just writing my own version of, kind of took a fan fiction idea from Lord of the Rings and made it into Rite of Wands, though you really couldn't see anything Lord of the Rings now in the series.
But that the Lord of the Rings was really the foundational inspiration.
Yeah, absolutely.
As you know, those books are such astounding pieces of literature, and people like to steal all the time, and make them their own. So, how long did it take you in actual writing time to get Rite of Wands finished?
For that one, it was literally about 13 years. What really was the kicker was my main character. Well, I should probably go back. I am, when it comes to personality, I am an INFJ, which we have this issue where we can have what's called perfectionist paralysis. What that means is that I have this brilliant idea in my head, but I can't explain it to somebody else so that they would be able to understand what I'm trying to do.
Okay.
So part of the issue was my main character. I thought I had the main character. It wasn't the case at all. My main character was kind of in the background, kind of doing his own thing, when instead he was supposed to be face forward in center. So that what happened is I had an opportunity to go to Wizard World Chicago, and I met Matt Smith from Doctor Who.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And people are going to be like, oh my gosh, Mackenzie, because I wrote the main character actually for Matt, but I will admit I was not a fan of him. I was not a fan of his doctor at the time I met him. I just thought, there's a doctor. I can meet him.
Right.
So I went and met him. A couple months later, when I was literally ready to throw my book out the window because I was so frustrated with it, Matt did whatever it was that made my introvertedness extroverted and birthed the Rite of Wands and gave me, excuse me, Myrta McKinnon.
That's extraordinary.
Yeah.
How cool is that? So for those people who are unsure, this is the Rite of Wands, and that it's a spectacular cover design. Can you tell me a little bit about where the idea came for that?
Yeah, who made that was Vern and Joni from BHE Press. They're my publisher. They wanted to know, kind of what was my idea. I said, all I want is the wand. The wand on the cover is actually, I had created there's a group of people out in Oregon called Magical Alley, and they made the Harry Potter wands. So I gave them a Photoshop version of what I pictured Myrta's wand to look like. And I said, hey, could you guys make this? They're like, yeah. And so they sent it to me. No kidding. Around the same week that wand came to my house, Matt was in Cleveland where my parents are. So I'm like, ooh, do I dare to bring this to him? Oh, yeah, I'm going to do it. So I did. And I brought it to him and I put it down on the desk and he's just like, oh, wow. And I wish that it could have been one of those things where I could have gotten on either a picture of it or a video of it, because he was like a little boy picking up the wand, swinging around, whoosh.
What fun. Oh my goodness. Well, I think it's just an inspired cover. It draws readers to it immediately.
Yeah.
So Rite of Wands, I'd like to know a little bit more for our readers who haven't looked at it yet. Can you give us a little bit of the synopsis and a little bit about the reading age group for this book?
Yeah. So the Rite of Wands really is for anybody who's 12 and up. So it can go for middle schoolers even. So if any schools are listening and want to get the book in, I would love to be a guest there and be able to bring the book into the schools.
So the more we can do for literacy for children, the better.
Yeah, exactly. So the whole series, it's a 5-book series. That being the Rite of Wands is the first one. It's about a 12-year-old boy by the name of Myrta McKinnon. He's a wizard, though he hasn't gained his powers yet. So what he does is he goes to the Rite of Wands ceremony, which has a little bit of a similarity to Christmas Carol. So you'll see a glance of his past, present, and future.
Okay.
In his future, he sees, you would say, a doomsday prophecy that's going to happen to the land of Averna and to his family. So he becomes obsessed. He wants to alter history. He wants to change it. So as I tell people as a kind of a joke, but I'm being serious at the same time, is if Doctor Who and Harry Potter had a love child, you would have the Rite of Wands.
Okay, that's really fun. Wow, that's... My imagination goes all sorts of places with that one. I'm very excited about this. You've gotten such great notoriety with this book. It's really taken off for you.
Yeah.
You're wearing this great medal around your neck. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, this was from the Literary Classic. The Literary Classic used to be a magazine, and they really just read books that are very prestigious. And they started, this was 8 years ago. So 8 years ago, they started the Literary Classic Book Awards. And they have been doing them at different times of the year. This time around, they did it in Rapid City, South Dakota, which when I told people that I was going there, like, what's out in Rapid City? Folks, there is so much to do. You could spend over a week and still have so much. There's just so much to see fabulous. Out there. So I ended up entering the contest. I ended up winning the gold medal, and I flew out there. There was a book festival. There was the actual award ceremony, which you got a red carpet. There was a red carpet.
We've got a picture of that. There you are on your red carpet. That's pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah. Got the photographer there, and it was so cool. And then even as a little bit of a really cool thing that they did, there was this other category which they hadn't done before, and because they knew that Matt was so inspirational to me, they created a other category for most inspirational person, and so Matt has a medal just like
How
this.
Nice. That's fabulous that you're able to share that with him.
Yeah,
and being such an integral part of your imagination.
Yes.
And being the inspiration for that, kind of like the literary kick in the pants, so to speak. That's a great thing that he was recognized for helping you in that way.
Yeah, especially because he likes to say, oh, he never wins an award. He's not recognized for anything. So Matt, stop saying that.
Yeah, okay, Matt, you've had your day on the red carpet. Now you can't deny it anymore.
Yeah.
So you said that this is part of a series.
Yeah.
And this is book 1.
Yes.
So tell us, without giving away too much, you know, the world of literary people don't like spoilers any more than the world of film people like spoilers. So without giving away too much, what's the progression of the rest of the books in the series?
So the second one is going to be kind of a bridge book. By that, for those who have not read the Rite of Wands, there is a part of the book where there's a gap about 20 years. Originally, I was like, oh, you know, who cares what happened in those 20 years? Well, when I was writing the second book, Myrta had said, we're going to go back. You're going to tell that story. So I tell the story of what happened. I got kind of inspired by my editor because she said that in the very first book, we don't really get to see Myrta being too much of a apothecarist, which is really a doctor in back in the medieval times.
Right.
So I work on that so you get to really see that. And I thought about that too because Tolkien really, he skipped a lot of that medical stuff too. So I wanted to go into that daring world where, okay, I'm going to become scientific and or actually talk about that kind of stuff. So the second book will be dealing a lot of, you'll learn about Lothlin, more about Lothlin, which is Myrta's younger brother, more of his story, how he fits in, and why he is kind of so off compared to Myrta. You can kind of say that, how are they even brothers? Because their personalities are just so like extreme to the other.
You know, I've been talking about this for years. I have siblings, and we grew up in the same house with the same parents, same schools, same neighborhood. We are 4 completely different human beings. I wish somebody would give me a grant so I can study this phenomenon and figure out how it works.
Yeah.
A friend of mine who is an author and also a psychologist said, yeah, it's been done. Like, well, okay, somebody needs to give me those answers.
Yeah.
And something you said, too, about there are 20-year gap that's missing.
Yeah.
And you didn't think anyone would want to know about those. But, you know, all we have to do is look at history, and we want to know. You know, the first one that comes to mind for everyone is Jesus Christ.
Yes.
What happened in those 30 years? Right? So definitely, I think that's a great idea, that the next book in the series is going to give us that kind of backstory. So what comes after that?
So after that, it's going to kick in, and a lot of readers are like, Mackenzie, why did you do this? So at the end of the book 1, there is a cliffhanger. And so that third book is really you could say is going to be the Game of Thrones of the series, where you're going to see a lot of changes. You're going to see the manipulation from Queen Anya. You're going to see how it manipulates Myrta in a way that he's still battling the Shreya, but there's something else. Lothlin tries to do something that's helpful, and of course, Lothlin being Lothlin, he screws it up horribly, and Myrta has to fix it. And you're going to see how, besides battling the Shreya, with him trying to fix what Lothlin did, is really kind of deteriorates the character. He really goes through a lot of stuff in the third book.
Okay, so remind me again, how many books are in this series?
There's going to be 5 of them.
So there's 5 books in the series. You've just told us about 3.
Yeah.
There's 2 more. This brings me to the question I have for every author I ever speak to, and that is, you know, the classic question, are you a pantser or are you a plotter? Sounds to me like you're a plotter.
I'm both, actually. I'm a plantser. So,
okay.
Yeah, I will outline my books, but when it comes to, like, Myrta, he's completely by the seat of my pants. He
just kind of takes over.
Yeah, he completely takes over, and he controls how many books there is in the series. Because I originally was only planning to have 3. And, well, that's the first 2 books kind of weren't supposed to exist, and now they do.
Yeah.
Now, also, there's probably going to be some standalones, because a lot of people are asking me about Morton, which is Myrta's dad, and saying, well, what's his story? How did he become a Medulla?
Isn't it interesting how sometimes our minor characters become real fascination for our readers,
yes.
And then you have to give them that which they ask for. I have one of my books that way, where people have been saying, yeah, but what about that character? How did that character happen? So now I have to work on that, which is, you know, I don't mind. But it's an interesting thought, because I never thought that she would be a character that somebody would want to know more about.
You're right.
So how do you juggle this, who to make? I mean, I know the characters speak, and they speak very loudly, and sometimes they say, I don't want to be a main character.
Yeah.
And sometimes they say, you know what, this main character is not doing the job, I'm going to take over. So when your characters start talking to you in that way, how do you mitigate that and make the decisions about storyline? Because it's my experience of your writing is that it's character driven.
Yeah.
So how do you then acclimate the plot to which of your characters are speaking most loudly?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So that's a good question too, because in Rite of Wands there's actually a dual main character. There's Myrta, and then there's Orlin O'Brien, who's another warlock. And the way that I designed it is that each chapter changes points of view. So it flip-flops, and it does that with the second book too. So I intend on doing that to all 5 of them.
Okay.
So they have their own type of storyline. All the characters kind of intermixed, you could say, like a soap opera, but they all have their own type of storyline. So with Myrta originally not existing, I had to go, okay, this is where the story was originally going to go. How do I fit him into it? What's happened for him that's going to be so significant that he fits into still my plan of how the story goes? And it was quite daunting to create that, and yet it fit the character perfectly. So it was almost like the character was meant to be, because a lot of times when you're creating a character, you have to do, the background of them.
Sure.
This character, he came out of nowhere and he told me his name. He said I wasn't calling him the correct name. He showed me what he looked like, his face, and even his background story. He said, well, this is my dad. This is what we do. And it was just like, I'm like, wow.
Isn't it amazing how sometimes it just happens when you're not watching? And that's why so often I tell people who ask me, how does this happen? What's your process? And 90% of the time, I'm just taking dictation.
Yeah, exactly.
I have a friend who writes mysteries, and he says he just, eavesdrops and writes up incident reports. So it's really just about we're on the periphery watching what happens with these worlds and these people.
Yeah.
And we're just writing it down and occasionally fixing the grammar. Aside from that. So, when do you expect the next book in the series to be out?
I can say at this moment it is with the publisher.
Okay.
And we don't have a release date yet, but I suspect it's probably going to be 2020 is when it is. We have a big marketing plan.
Great.
That is going to, so those who started reading the series back in 2017, I'm sorry, you're going to have to wait just a little bit longer, but I can promise it's worth it. I can say that it is going to be worth it.
Excellent. So now, this book.
Yeah.
Whispered Tales of Graves Grove, an anthology. I'm looking at it. I have not had a chance to read this one yet. My TBR pile is hundreds deep. I wish that it weren't, but it is. I can't say that I wish that it weren't, because I love that I have so many great options to read. I just picked up 2 more yesterday. So this is an anthology. Is this horror? Is this paranormal? Is this kind of a mixture? Tell us about this book and the authors who contributed.
Sure. It is a mix. It has some comedy in there. It's got some paranormal in there. It's got horror in there. My story, I would say, would definitely be more horror. Mine is, so going back to the actual background of the story, there was 17 authors that all contributed. We all had a similar theme, which was writing about people that lived in Graves Grove and odd things that happened. So you could pick something that kind of grabbed your attention. So the prompt for me that grabbed my attention was telling about a lady that has a young child. She's walking around town with this carriage, talking to him, but there's a mystery to it. The carriage is falling apart, and there's no baby in the carriage. So there's that story, and what's interesting is I brought actually a little bit of my childhood into that story, because when I growing up, I heard a story that was very scary, and I didn't know that there was any truth to it until I found out Franklin Castle in Cleveland, Ohio actually existed, and the story I heard really existed.
Wow.
Yeah, so
that's a little... It's a little eerie.
Yeah.
You're creating a story that you think is fiction, and then you find out it's not completely.
Yeah.
That reinforces my belief that we're energetically connected, and that what we create out of what we think is fiction is just a retelling.
Exactly.
Maybe it's not the perfect retelling, but it always feels to me like what I write is a retelling, not a first telling. Do you get that same experience when you write?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially even with the Graves Grove, because I decided to make it like Ghost Hunters meets Dead Files. So my main character is very much inspired by Zach Baggins from Ghost Adventures. And if you read the story, you'll probably get it, because Zach has a way of portraying himself when he is out in the open versus how he is necessarily with his family. So I wanted to keep that idea of that character. And then when it goes into the whole thing of what happened to the child, that is where the story of Franklin Castle kind of lingers itself in.
So tell me about these other authors and how they were selected. Was this the result of a contest? Was this a result of people just submitting and you pulling the cream of the crop? How did they get their work in this book?
Yeah, so J.S. Bailey and Kelsey, they both were authors. J.S. Bailey actually is one of the authors for BHA Press, who I'm with.
Okay.
She is more of a paranormal / you could call her like a Dean's Coon. So there's a lot of thriller mystery that she writes, and she had this project originally. Graves Grove, from my understanding, was supposed to be through somebody else, and for whatever reason, that project just never came to light.
Okay.
So she brought it over to BHE Press, and they're like, "Yeah, we'll do it, and we'll do some for charity work too." So they had a website where they had all these different prompts there, and then you would create a story. And pretty much we didn't know what order anything would go in, but the way it actually fits together, because I've never seen an anthology that works like this, where it actually reads as one full novel, even though it's 17 different authors.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That you were able to lay it out that way.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Where can people find this? I mean, is the anthology just through your publishing house, or they can find it at wherever bookstores may carry it?
Right, exactly.
Okay,
yeah.
that's fabulous. Yay. I'm having a little bit of technical issues here today.
Uh-oh.
I love television.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
so much fun. There we go. I'm so excited about that. Are you planning on doing another anthology?
Yes, I'm actually writing a story right now that is, best way to describe it is Star Trek Voyager and Doctor Who are meshing together, and I'm creating my own universe. My idea is it's going to go into an anthology called, it has something to do with Uncharted Realms. I don't believe I got the name of it right, but Realms is in there.
Okay.
And my idea is to actually create a whole entire book of short stories, too, to go with that. So it will be hopefully in that anthology. If not, then it will be in this short story. So one way or the other, it will come to light.
Excellent. That's fantastic. Other than the next book in the series for Rite of Wands, is there anything else that you're working on kind of on the sidelines? Do you work on multiple projects simultaneously?
I do, yeah.
I know you're doing this anthology piece, but is there another major work that you're working on while you're producing the next book in this series?
Yes, I actually am. I'm working on a personal growth book, which is something I've been wanting to do for a long time, about how to overcome, like, your demons. So a lot of people hurt people, and a lot of people, and especially in the United States, mental illness is such a big issue that needs to be addressed. So I'm actually writing about some of the things that I dealt with. A lot of people don't realize, because I'm so bubbly and energetic, they don't realize that I actually have ABPD, I have PTSD, and I suffer from depression and anxiety.
Okay, I would never know this.
Yeah, you would know it.
I would never know this spending time with you. That's not what I would have diagnosed you with. No.
Yeah. And the ABPD was actually, when I was originally diagnosed, they said it was on the scale, it was very severe. So I had to do a lot of learning how to counter that. Mm-hmm. So this personal growth book, I'm actually writing so that I can help other people.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
When do you expect that might be released?
My plan is to get it done by the Ignited Souls Conference, which is going to be in October in Columbus. And it's actually going through Author Academy Elite with Carrie Oberbrunner. So that is a really cool project that I'm working on right now.
Do you also have a blog as well that people can follow you at?
Yeah, I do. I have a blog.
Okay. We have your website crawling. It's on the screen right now so that people can find you. I just think you're a spectacular author, and I really enjoy spending time with you. You just have this wonderful energy.
Thank you.
So I really want more people to discover you and discover what you write and enjoy the worlds that you create, because they really are fun. I'm looking forward to the next book.
Oh, thank you.
I think it's going to be a great ride, and I'm so happy for you that you got this award.
Thank you.
One of the questions that, and just to wrap up because we're almost out of time, one of the questions that we as authors get asked a lot is, what's your best advice?
Yeah.
So, aspiring author, what would be your best advice?
Definitely, because this happened to me, is if somebody tells you can't do it, you can do it. If I listened to that, which I call a minefield, if I had listened to my minefields, I wouldn't be an author. There's a story I like to tell people, which, because we're running out of time, I'll tell it really quickly, is my dad, back in, I'm going to say it's like probably 2006, when we were coming back from Orlando, Florida, there was a young girl about my age and her dad sitting right across from us at an airport. And they were wondering what I'm working on. And of course, it was like a rough draft of Rite of Wands at that time. And so I said, telling them about it. They were excited about it. And then my dad, who's sitting like literally next to me, he's like, oh yeah, she's writing a story, but she'll never finish it. So if I had listened to my dad, I would never have I would have been, because I was raised as being, I'm not good enough. I'm never going to go anywhere. I'm nothing. So,
essentially the best advice is don't listen to the naysayers. Do it anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
I run into that a lot myself. What's the worst piece of writing advice you've ever gotten? Aside from you'll never be able to do it. What's the worst piece you've ever gotten?
For me, it's writing what you know.
Yeah.
You'll hear that so many times that even authors will say, oh, you should write just what you know. Terrible advice. Terrible, because you don't know what I've never written anything about something I actually know. I like discovering it.
Well, sure, and we'd like to make up things as we go along. Yeah. And what would be the fun? What really would be the fun in only writing what you know about? That's a really small sphere of understanding for most of us.
Yes.
Most of us are not Stephen Hawking. So writing what you know, what is the fun in that? Writing what you don't know, I think, is more fun. And I think the research part of that can be a lot of fun. I'm sure that you did some research for Rite of Wands to learn world building and character development, and that in itself is a trip.
Yeah. Oh gosh, yes. I can think of some of the weirdest things that I had to look up too. It's like I had to look up a scenario where there was a slug, how a slug goes from your stomach to your brain. I'm like, oh, this is very interesting.
Thank you so much for being with us today. I really appreciate you coming in and adding your energy to our studio. And I'm so excited for your words. I really hope you get many, many more of them.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for having me.
Thank you. And have a great night.
You too.